Who are you?
Surrender your mysteries to Longarms.
Have you ever wondered how a video game character just ceases to exist? Like, just how does the industry leave them behind as if they were like a really crappy secondary character in a horror movie? And then they trip, which I mean, like, of course they would trip. It's a horror movie. They're going to trip. And then, like, Michael Myers, like, comes up from behind, reaches over, grabs him, and stabs him till they're dead! Well, I wondered the same thing myself, and today we're going to look at some video game characters that have mostly been forgotten by today's gaming audience. I mean, you got like your Gexes, and your Bubsies, and your
Buck Bumble. Bump to the bass, to the bump to the bass, bump to the bump to the bumble. Bump to the bump to the bump to the bass, bump to the bump to the bumble.
This one may be a little bit of a stretch, which is why this character is at number 5, but Bomberman hasn't exactly had the greatest track record as of late. During the 90s and early 2000s, his heyday was unprecedented. He had like a zillion fun multiplayer games for the Super Nintendo, 3 N64 games with one being way more than it's worth to actually own nowadays, like good god! 2 PlayStation games and an online multiplayer game for the Dreamcast? Dude, that's so cool! Dreamcast for best console 2016, like seriously, they're still making games for it! And a whole bunch of others that I'm sure I'm neglecting to mention. Basically, Bomberman was everywhere, and for as iconic of a character as he was, and for as basic yet still fun as the gameplay was, he harkened himself to Pac-Man levels of recognition. His games may have relatively stayed the same, but his image was always pretty well known. Until... Yup, Hudson Soft, the company that created Bomberman, went bankrupt. One of their many poor decisions to help drive the nail into the coffin for him was to make a gritty and realistic game on the Xbox 360, and I'm pretty sure you all know what I'm talking about right now. Even if you've never played it, it's a game that nobody has ever mentally let go of whenever Bomberman is mentioned, and it's kind of hard to let go of, especially when it's labeled as one of the worst games of all time. Perhaps it's best for Bomberman to stay gone for a little while until a brave developer wants to give a brand new spin on the character, which I'm sure would be much appreciated for today's gaming audience, especially if it helps us forget the terrible things we've seen from Bomberman. Like Atomic Bomberman! Oh, this is what the game we're thinking of. Well, what, you never heard of Atomic Bomberman? No, nobody? Pitfall was a huge game when the Atari 2600 came out. It was a platforming giant that steamboated ahead of all the other games and positioned itself as one of the system's heavyweights, alongside other hit games like Yar's Revenge and Space Invaders and... Pac-Man.
Oh god. Oh, not Pac-Man. I'm gonna throw up.
So naturally, they made a sequel, and that's about it. That's done. That's all the games Pitfall Harry was ever in. Yep, that was all of them. It sure was. Oh god, please don't make me do this.
Did you see that? I like it!
Needless to say, the other incarnations that Pitfall Harry or Pitfall Harry Jr. appeared in weren't exactly standout titles. His Super Nintendo game was pretty... Although, Pitfall Harry Jr. may want to consider a career switch into stripping. His transition into 3D was also tumultuous, with Pitfall 3D Beyond the Jungle being nowhere near as enticing as his early work, and god, feels like I'm talking about like Bob Dylan's discography or something. It also feels like his legacy never really extended quite as well as it did beyond his first 2 games. I think that's because the core feeling from the original didn't transition well into the more modern era. It's hard to take an older game and recreate it into something new, and Pitfall Harry was one of those unfortunate subjects who could never quite fit in with all the more newer and hip cool kids that are young and fresh and relatable and filled with so much energy. How do they do it? God, I'm so old! For one of the most forgotten games of all time also comes one of the most forgotten about video game characters as well. Jade from Beyond Good and Evil has had nothing but a hard time being recognized, which is really a shame. A sleeper hit in its own right, the game is fantastic, and it's really hard to imagine why it didn't sell well in the first place, but I suppose going head to head with other holiday titles from 2003 like Mario Kart Double Dash, Prince of Persia Sands of Time, SOCOM 2, and 13? Well, maybe not that one. Let's just put that one over there. Yeah, there we go, yeah. Regardless, Beyond Good and Evil should have sold like millions upon millions of copies, and Jade should have been a household name, much akin to the likes of Samus, Zelda, or Tifa. Instead, she got dropped super hard like one of those things that, you know, holds a whole bunch of plastic bags that the moms all around the world have, because ain't nobody has time to deal with all the plastic bags. Much akin to how Ubisoft apparently doesn't have time to deal with making a sequel.
I like it!
Alright, I gotta get something off my chest, and I'm just gonna go out and say it, and you all are gonna have to live with it for the rest of your lives, okay? Okay. Ristar is better than Sonic. Oh! Oh! No, he did it! No, he did it! Even if Ristar's only had one game, it's hard to ignore just how good it really is. Have you played it? No, like seriously, have you played Ristar? Because if you haven't, you should play it. It's on Steam for like the price of a mocha frappe from Starbucks. Skip your morning coffee and buy it. You won't regret it except for when you fall asleep for playing it because, well, you didn't have your morning coffee. But hey, at least you did what I told you to, and if I can influence your decision to buy something, then that makes me feel good. The main reason Ristar doesn't have a dozen games under his belt like his best bud Sonic is because Ristar came out at the end of the Genesis lifespan. The Saturn was a few short months away, so people were either using their cold hard cash to upgrade, or just plain old weren't interested since it was such a late release on the system. No matter how hard Ristar got screwed over, and believe you me, he did get screwed over, the end product was fantastic. It is one of the best platformers I've ever played. Considering the quality of the product, you'd think Sega would want to revive him in some shape or form, especially since the last Sonic game was an incredible bust. I'm sure that a revival of one of their older IPs would be much more welcome than, you know, another crappy Sonic game. God, can't they just take him out back and end his misery already? Just do it, Pa! Just do it, I can't watch!
You're too.
No matter what though, Ristar is fantastic, and one could only imagine what would have happened had he been released during a more ideal time. If that would have happened, he most definitely would have been as forgotten as much as he is now. Rest in peace, Ristar. Rest in peace.
Out of all the countless video game characters that time has forgotten over the years, there has always been one that has stuck out to me as really unique, and that character just has to be Glover. Now I'm not sure where the inspiration for this little guy came from, but I'm just going to assume that back in 1998, the guys over at Interactive Studios were cooking Hamburger Helper while wearing the Power Glove while fighting Master Hand in Super Smash Bros. In the future, and they thought, yeah, a glove would make a great protagonist for a video game. And so Glover was created, taking the plunge on Nintendo 64, PC, and PlayStation. In the game, you controlled the glove through various worlds in an attempt to save the Crystal Kingdom with magical balls at your disposal, which made for a pretty cool and interesting experience. But unfortunately, this experience was bogged down primarily due to mediocre controls that were too complicated for an action platformer, resulting in the game getting very mixed reviews. IGN gave the N64 version an excellent 8.3 out of 10, while the PlayStation 1 port got an unbelievable 2.6 out of 10. In my opinion, the game is fairly decent, with Glover himself being the best part of the game simply because he's unlike anyone that gaming has ever seen before. Sure, we've seen thousands of humans and animals, but has anyone seen a living glove? Let alone one that can double jump, cartwheel, and fist slam in addition to walk on top of and dribble balls? Definitely not. He just grabs your attention in ways that most other gaming characters never can. So why was such a unique little fellow left behind in gaming history? Probably because the one game that he appeared in was overshadowed by other, more superior platformers of the time period, or maybe it's because people generally aren't that interested in gloves, I don't know. Sure, they're useful when doing yard work and cooking and driving, but they're pretty boring overall. They don't do much, they just protect your hands. But on the other side of things, Glover goes out to save the entire Crystal Kingdom. Now that's something that even the glove couldn't do. But if we're comparing gloves here, then you can't argue that Glover is the best damn glove ever created. He really is a character that I just can't help but love. And even more so when I found out that he was robbed of his own sequel. Glover 2 was in development in 1999, however because of the publisher's financial problems, the game was never released. But this begs the question, what would things be like if Glover 2 was released? Maybe he would have inspired countless other inanimate objects to come out of the shadows and star in their own games, but sadly it wasn't meant to be. Little buddy, the spotlight may have been stolen by other platformers and inferior gloves, but I'll still remember you.
Oh wait,
I forgot I was making a video. Just like everybody forgot about this character. Super Mario RPG. Oh, you already know who we're going to talk about, don't you? Oh, God, you all feel the exact same pain that I do too, huh? Well then, let's talk about it, shall we? Geno got the short end of the stick where all the sticks were short and he was the only one picking them. We all know the story. Geno, this super cool, awesome character for one of the best games for the Super Nintendo, never gets used in anything ever again. There is a reason for this though, in that this was the last game Square ever made for the Super Nintendo that was released in America, and also their last game for the Big N until they released Final Fantasy Tactics on the Game Boy Advance in 2003. Considering Geno was technically a creation of Square, they owned all the rights to his character alongside any of the other original characters contained within the game. At least I would imagine so, considering, they made the game. Nintendo unfortunately had their hands tied. They just simply didn't own the rights for those characters as much as I'm sure they love to buy the rights from Square. Since 1996, you couldn't go anywhere on the internet, whether it was message boards or comment threads, basically any place where you could type publicly for other people to see. Fans everywhere wanted, nay demanded to see Geno again in video game form. That's how popular he was and still is. Nintendo could do nothing to comply though, and that reason alone is why Geno tops this list. It was simply out of their hands. Considering how Square Enix is a much more versatile company now than they've ever been, and have worked with Nintendo for a variety of games, perhaps soon enough we'll get to see Geno on a Nintendo console again, especially considering that Cloud is now playable in Smash 4, and Geno himself is a costume that the Mii Fighter can use. Regardless, it would be absolutely fantastic for all the die-hard Geno fans, myself included, if he were to be in a video game yet again. And let's hope that comes soon enough, because we've been waiting for a long, long time.
That was weird.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. As always, your support really does mean the world to me. If you liked what you saw, then please consider subscribing and hitting the like button. Both of those help me out so much. I'd like to thank my friends Vectrex4Life for agreeing to appear in the video and for doing a super awesome job. You go check out his channel. He does forgotten video games. That's why I brought him on, because I, thought it made sense. And to Connor Klein for doing that little cameo and for just generally being awesome. Thanks, fellas. And I'm pretty sure this is the first video that I made since I hit 1,000 subs, so thank you, everybody. Love you all so much. I will see you in the next video that'll hopefully be soon.